the more information that you have, and the more information that you can prevent your opponent from having, maximizes your strategic planning, right? I know things about the game that you don't know. I use that information to lead you down the rabbit hole, basically. Okay, on the role of limited information in game theory. So the first thing is, information is limited if parties to the conflict have limited information. It's pretty obvious, right? If I don't know, right, let's say I'm 2, and I'm attempting to assess the many decisions that I can make, if I don't know historically, right, what the decisions have been of my opponent, for whatever reasons, I don't have access to that historical data. I don't know, or I can't anticipate, or because of maybe the specificity of the nature of the conflict, what the actions might be. That limited information is going to make my decision that much harder, right? Especially if the decision is time sensitive, right? I don't know if I'm going to be attacked. I don't know if I'm not going to be attacked. If I wait to be attacked, then I'm defensive. Maybe I should attack preemptively, and so on and so forth, right? So all of this factors in at that level. So information is critical. Information is limited if parties to the conflict have limited information, obvious. 2, persuasion, signaling, and bluffing are all, signaling is sort of interchangeable with posturing, right? Some people call it signaling, some people call it posturing. Persuasion, signaling, and bluffing are all representative features of limited information, right? What ends up happening, think about poker. Poker is a great example for number 2. In poker, what you do is if you're a good poker player, you recognize the cards that you have, you recognize the cards that have been played, and based on your knowledge of the game, you can infer not who has particular cards, but if you're really good, what cards are out there. And based on how other people are betting, you infer, well, he or she must have this particular card because I know that card is still out there. And I know a combination of these cards creates a certain power structure, and you try to make bets based on the relationship of 2 things. The level of the bet that the person is playing, and your knowledge of the remaining cards left in the game. However, people who are really good poker players also recognize this. So what they do is, since they recognize that the information is limited, they will bet, let's say, a large amount of money in an attempt to posture as if they have the privileged set, right? Now, you don't know whether or not that posturing is legitimate, so you're going to have to be able to act in corresponding fashion. And this really is what, I mean, poker is probably the best way to learn about war strategy, right? Being a good poker player. I would say I wouldn't want any. This is what I would say. I wouldn't want anybody to be in charge of my military legions if they weren't good at poker, right? You got to sort of be a good poker player first, a really good poker player, in order to be a good sort of strategist, because that's what it's all about, right? It's about posturing, it's about bargaining, it's about deceiving your opponent, and there is power in deception. So with respect to the idea of posturing, persuasion, signaling, bluffing, all of these are consequences of limited information. We do this, right? These actions are consequences of, right, limited information. So if you were to sort of put this in a conditional, if information is limited, then we have posturing, signaling, and bluffing, right? When this information is limited, we have these states of affairs, right? Because what these states of affairs do is it creates a situation in which your opponent can't assess really what is the case. And you want to keep them shrouded in mystery as much as possible. Remember, you get all the information to yourself, you deny your opponent as much information as you can deny him, right? That's really how, at its basis, that's what this is about, the manipulation of information. And even deeper, like the manipulation of information is exactly what power is, right? In a sense, again, to go back to Zizek, power is not the fact that I can kill people, right? Power is not the fact that I can crush someone. That's an obvious misuse of power, and in a Machiavellian sense, that's going to lead to the destruction of the state, right? Because if you misuse your power, if you're abusing the population, they will eventually revolt. Granted, you might have to do a lot of sort of infractions of power. power really comes in sort of the manipulation and the construction of information. And as Chomsky said in Manufacturing Consent, no one says it better, period. Chomsky's whole spiel on manufacturing consent is how the manufacturing of consent results in a culmination of power at the top. The academics, the politicians sort of culminate. And he includes himself in this, right? He's the academic, right? So he includes himself in sort of this hierarchy of established power because information is power, right? Knowledge is power. My YouTube video, education is power, and what I'm giving you is information, right? So information is power, undeniably. All right. Information is number 3. Information is only accessible to the particular actor. If identified as a private information. Information that is only accessible to a particular actor is identified as private information, obviously, right? So private information is actually a technical concept, right? But it's very, very simple. If you know, for example, that your friend, who is a woman, and her boyfriend are having conflict, and the boyfriend has confided in you privately that the reason why I'm having a conflict with her is because you know, I don't know, is because I'm about to walk out of the relationship, but I don't want you to tell anything. That information that you have, the fact that you know that he's about to walk out of the information, it puts you in a very powerful position, right? That information is privy to you. You've been made privy to this information. That information is private. If you disclose that information to the other party, his girlfriend, you can imagine what's going to happen, right? The conflict is going to escalate, right? The conflict is going to escalate in any number of forms, right? So you want to try and keep as much information in the game. That's not a good example of an actual game, but it's just an idea. In the game, you want to keep as much information. Let me give you a better example. In conflicts between two states, if I know that I have, and this is why snitches, people hate snitches so much, right? Imagine the snitch comes to me, and the snitch says, hey, those guys are going to make the bomb deal, the exchange for weapons at this particular juncture, and this guy's a mole, right? I use that information, oh my goodness, wow, I would never disclose the fact that I know that there's a mole in my organization, or this makes for great espionage movies, right? Or the fact that I know that they're going to make the exchange for whatever the weapons might be at this particular place at this particular time. What I do is, I let them think that I don't know. They carry on about what they're going to do. They attempt to, you know, descend and meet, and before they actually get to the point of location, I kill them all. That's how that works, right? So I use that information to my advantage because their defenses are going to be completely down. They're going to be there to make some exchange, and, you know, got a drone in the air, and you take them out before they actually complete whatever it is that's going to pose a potential threat to me. None of that would have been possible, however, unless there weren't, you know, moles in the organization. And there's a whole sort of strategical understanding of moles, counter-moles, information, counter-information, and so on. But I'm not going to get into that now. You get the idea. And as I said, this strategy applied. 1 is using the strategy, right? And 2 is using the strategy. It's not like this is just for party 1. Both parties are using the strategy, right? And people who are familiar with war strategy, it's like, I'm not sure that there are that many people, but people who are familiar with sort of strategical war planning know that their enemy know this. So the game gets really complicated because you already know that all the tricks that you have and all the information that you have, they have exactly the same information, they have exactly the same tricks. So you're playing this game at a very, very, very complicated, very high intellectual level, right? It's not easy to play the game, right? It really isn't, at its most advanced level. Private information is inferred from action. What does that mean? Well, I use this picture as an example to demonstrate what the significance of what private information is inferred from action, right? And why this is important. So I'm going to I do this in my lectures all the time, right? I call it ghetto philosophy. I'm going to keep it simple, stupid, right? Keep it real simple so that you get it, and then we can complicate it later, but let's make it very clear. So you're on the side of the road, you stop at the light, and there's a homeless guy who has a sign. And the sign says, "My father was killed by ninjas. Need money for karate lessons." That's hilarious, right? He's going to get $1. So my father was killed by ninjas. Need money for karate lessons. Now, No one in their right mind, no one in their right mind gives this man $1 thinking that he's actually going to use the dollar to go get karate lessons and avenge his father. It would be absolutely hilarious if it were the case that he were actually going to use the dollar to get karate lessons and avenge his father's death, right? But we all know he's not going to do that. The question is, what is the relationship between the sign and his actual intent?